Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, a weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Most of the time. Sometimes I skip over, but that's besides the point. So the videos were down here last time. These are videos from the week. So I started doing solos of Palace of the Dead since that came out last Tuesday. I have now officially soloed 1 to 50 on Monk. That is entirely uploaded to YouTube, or will be by the time I post this on Monday. And then on top of that, I started working on Machinist. Probably the solo I'm expecting to be the absolute hardest is Machinist. So I want to give that a shot because I think if I don't get really lucky with Commanders, it's not going to be possible on the higher floors. But we'll see. I don't know precisely. Maybe if I just potion chug and I wait more patiently between enemies, it'll be okay. On that note, I am doing this live on Twitch again, unlike last week. Apologies over on the Twitch side for not live streaming last week. Just, I don't know, something hasn't felt right lately. I mean, ever since the hype of the Final Fantasy X when we hit 1,000 subs, I knew that when we came down from that hype, I probably was going to feel like almost kind of tilted in a sense. I know that's not that you don't get tilted on things like this, but I don't know. I couldn't think of another word. And I don't know. I got to get back into the funk of things, and I'm not my feng shui is it's not all in the right place right now. So I got to get back on track with a lot of things. I'm hoping Final Fantasy Countup will put us back on track because I don't know. Just things have felt empty ever since the Final Fantasy X accomplishment that we had. So I'm hoping Final Fantasy Countup kind of revitalizes that within me. And for that, I'm going to be putting pretty much all of my energy into it. We start Final Fantasy Countup tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Or in the case of Monday, by the time you see this, it will probably have already started. We're starting with Final Fantasy 1, the PlayStation 1 version. We're going to be playing that until 1 p.m. And then I'm going to be doing a special cast with Scott to Morag. And then on top of that, I have Raid later that day, so then I'm going to go to sleep. Tuesday, we have the Yokai Watch event, plus I have day 2 of Final Fantasy Countup, so on top of State of the Realm, that's going to be a super busy day. And then the rest of the week, we're going to be doing a bunch of sub-benefits and giveaways and stuff like that, depending on which games we play through. So if you're someone who likes single-player Final Fantasy games, 2 things. 1, come by the live stream, because it's going to be fun. 2, I will be doing my best to upload every single full live stream to YouTube. That being said, that is an extremely long process. I do not expect it in 1080p 60 FPS. I need to render those in 720p because otherwise these 7 to 10 hour streams are going to take over 24 hours to render, and then they'll never get posted, and you guys will hate me for saying it in the first place. So, with that out of the way, we have a few questions to answer. We're going to start with the video question that I got, and it says, question about crossover. So let's watch the video real quick.
A lot of crossover events in the last few years. You had the Lightning Returns crossover, and then you had the Final Fantasy XI crossover, and then most recently you've got the Yokai Watch crossover, where you basically just have to kind of Atma farm. So my question would be, what kind of like crossover events do you think are most likely to happen in the future? And secondly, what would be kind of your dream crossover event? Like, if you have anything crossover with Final Fantasy XIV, what would kind of be your favorite crossover? And third of all, do you think there's kind of anything better that Square Enix can do for crossover events? Because I know there's been a lot of outcry about the Yokai Watch thing, because it just seems like a lot of grinding. So, yeah, cool.
All right, so first of all, thank you for the question. The beginning cut off there a little bit, but don't worry too much about that. Your entire question definitely got through. So crossover events are something I always enjoy in small doses. I am personally not someone who thinks they're super necessary, mostly because if they're going to develop something for a crossover, if it's going to take any more than the minimum amount of resources, then it's probably going to be digging into more long-term pieces of content. So the Yokai Watch event, I imagine the majority of time was spent actually designing the items and making sure they represented the yokai themselves, and then designing the minions, designing the weapons, and then figuring out how to make the mount look as little, just as non-ridiculous as possible. So also, it's a capturing type of game. It's like Pokemon. I imagined it was going to be Fates in the first place. I was like, as soon as I saw that watch, I'm like, it's going to be do Fates while you're wearing that watch. I knew it months ago when they showed us that. So, I don't know. My expectations for the Yokai Watch event have kind of been met. As for dream crossover events, Final Fantasy 15 is the only one I could think of. But honestly, I'm not someone who really looks to the crossover events to be like super in depth. I look for them to tell a story, for them to be a crossover that doesn't intrude on the Final Fantasy XIV universe too much, and then it goes away after some time. You know, the Lightning Returns one wasn't fantastic, but it was still pretty cool. You know, you go and do this fate, oh, follow-up fate spawns, or lightning actually spawned in the middle of this fate. And now she's here and she's roaming around, and there's a story. Why is she here? She was sent here. And if you know the story of Final Fantasy 13 and Lightning Returns, all of a sudden it goes, oh, okay. Well, this kind of makes sense. So that one was literally just do like 4 fates, and that one turned out fine. The Dragon Quest X one was fine. The first Final Fantasy 11 one was fine. I don't expect them to be any more in depth. This is going to take a lot longer, so we have 2 months to do it. And I don't know. I probably won't get all 13 weapons with Final Fantasy count up going on. That being said, I don't know what they're going to do elsewhere. Like, they're not going to literally take a ton of development time and develop this brand new system from the ground up just to support this just to support a crossover event. That's not what it's for. If they're going to do that, make level 5's development team do it for us, because we're not wasting our time with that. We got patch 3.4 to look forward to, and we got the Rising. And we probably have the summer event. We didn't have the summer event yet, did we? I don't remember. We have the Rising, and we have 3.4 to look forward to. I want them to put their time into that more so than a Yokai Watch crossover event. So I'm glad that they actually took the approach that they did. All right, so with the first video question out of the way, let's move over to the question over on the Dream Forums before we take some live questions over on the Twitch side of things. First up, takes one of the 99 stack of Hello Mr. Happy. Big shock. I don't even know what that means. No question roulette. Instead, what do you feel about the ability to change to stack dots on an enemy? So you mean like, yeah, 2 summoners cast Ruin. That's a bad example because Ruin's not a dot. That was the worst example of all time because Ruin is not a dot. I think it would be nice just for showcasing how many there are, but then you also have to consider it would basically need to stack the ones that aren't yours, because unless it being lit up just tells you like, oh, yours is currently active, but then you wouldn't be able to see the countdown timer unless they made it so that for your own the countdown timer shows, but it also shows how many different stacks of it there are. I don't know. I feel like for your own debuffs, it should be involved in that stacking debuff meter, but I would accept a stacking debuff meter as long as it was a debuff that could be applied more than once, because that would definitely free up some real estate under the names, and even with things like focus target, they could probably do a little bit more with that as well. All right, second question. Hey, Mr. H. That's almost like with Harley Quinn. Mr. J. I'm Mr. H. Not my first question, but have a bonus of 300 Pidgey candies. Listen, I know that they're used to evolve, but come on, man. So actually, funny story about that. So from what I'm hearing, there's actually going to be a legendary Pokemon spawning at San Diego Comic-Con at 2 p.m. So that's in about 45 minutes from when I'm recording this on Sunday. So if it's true, that's going to be amazing. It's supposed to be in Hall H, from what I understand. My question regarding crafting, I know you don't do it, but I love it and I've been doing it a lot. So I'd like to know, do you have any ideas as how they can make it more enticing for players who don't craft gather? No, and they shouldn't be. If you don't care to craft or gather, nothing they do is going to make you want to craft or gather. Like, unless it's just what it is. Like, you can't forcefully make it more interesting to more players, because you'll probably take away the core identity of what makes it interesting to crafters and gatherers if you do that. 2, I feel like when I'm crafting, I'm extremely isolated. I'd like to see more content where I can craft with friends. They've been talking about this, where you might get like party bonuses for crafting together, or they might do zones where if you're crafting all together in the same spot, that there's like bonus EXP or something like that. That's actually been a rising question in recent live letters. So I wouldn't be surprised to see not necessarily full crafting parties, but just things that encourage people to craft in groups as more of a social event far more frequently. All right, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. Third time asker, so I have a dyeable fat chocobo head. I have a fat chocobo head. I wore it for a pretty long time. 3 questions today, none of them too long. 1, why hasn't Square Enix done a thing to make specialist skills not suck? Because specialist skills aren't there for people who are omnicrafters. Basically, specialist skills are supposed to be alternatives to being an omnicrafter, and they are in every way slightly inferior to being an omnicrafter, which is kind of stupid if you ask me. I don't know why that they don't just make them near equal to the abilities they're mimicking. I think only one of them is considered really good, and I don't even know which one it is off the top of my head, but they're never going to be above exceptional. Like, they're always going to be kind of secondhand skills if you're someone who just doesn't want to go and level all your other crafters. 2, do you think Ruin and Ruin 2 should have a potency increase? No, because Summoner does fine without them having a potency increase. They don't need any more of a potency increase. Is Ruin 2's blind effect ever useful in a dungeon trial raid scenario? Some enemies can be blinded, especially in 4-man dungeons, and it helps with mitigation. If there's like a high priority target that hits the let's say you have a warrior or a dark knight, and the dark knight's not applying his blind with dark arts, and they don't have a blind effect in any other way. Applying it to the hardest hitting target, it's not that bad. I mean, the occasional miss always helps. I wouldn't tab target ruin 2 to apply blind on all the other things, but it does have its occasional use, and it's nice when it actually has some effect. All right, next question. Hey, Mr. Happ, congrats on the triple digits. Have a post-celebratory cake on me and light a bonfire. I don't know why I'm going to light the bonfire. What am I going to do with the bonfire? Or, like, am I going to, like, watch flies that, like, don't know any better just fly into the heat and disintegrate? That happened recently. What happened to your shades, dude? I don't know where they are. That's all that happened, dude. Also, where did you get them from? I want a colored pair, too. So it's not that they're colored. They're tinted so that the that monitors don't harm your eyes as much. I got them from Best Buy. They were a pair of Gunners. You can get them on the internet. You can get prescription at certain locations. When I worked in New York City, I used to see about 15 different computers like every different day. So I wasn't gonna do things like install f.lux into those. So I just walked over to a Best Buy and bought a pair for like $70. So that's all I did. And honestly, when I was wearing them, I didn't even notice the tint after a while. Like I would end up just wearing them around the house, and I would sometimes forget to take them off even when I was leaving the house. So I mean, they work well, but if you're only working out on one computer, Gunners are a good choice if you're someone who naturally wears glasses anyway. But there are also programs like f.lux that'll tint your screen in such a way that it replicates that effect. So you don't necessarily need to. If you're someone who works in IT, though, and you're looking at tons of different computers every day, you're always working on new computers, then you'll probably want to go with something along the lines of Gunners or any other sort of eye shield wear. I don't know what to call them. Eyewear that protects your eyes. All right, next question. Hey, Haps, looking good in the new desk. Yeah, the angle is way better, too. So, funny story about the new desk. So, 2 days ago, I was moving the green screen to behind me. I mean, I was moving my chair out into the savannah next to this giant boulder. And I realized that I had it high up because of the way that we had it before. But I just lowered it, and now I've got so much more room around me to move around. So, it actually is working out real good with the new desk because the camera angle makes it a lot easier to move the screen around. But anyway, so we have a bunch of questions. I have a theory worming around in my brain. It pertains to Thancred. So I'm just going to go ahead. That theory questions are a lot along the lines of the what do you think questions. So keep in mind, my answer is going to be super, like, not detailed. It's just, I'll consider things here, and then I'll give my thought on the theory, but it's going to be very low because anything could happen. We're not the writers to the story. It's fun to theorize occasionally, but we don't get too crazy with this. So when Thancred disguises himself as an Imperial soldier on the mission with Kryl, he does not wear his patch and looks fine. 2, he is forced to fight a Cyclops monster to distract it so the Grand Melee can continue. 3, he returns after we beat Raban. 4, at this point, Thancred is talking to the Warrior of Light, and one would assume all eyes would be watching the man who single-handedly took on a Cyclops. And the Warrior of Light in the discussion, nah, man, I could have taken on that Warrior of Light. I mean, I could have taken on that, I could have taken him on too. I could have taken on that Cyclops easy. Thancred then suddenly acts extremely overexhausted and injured right out in the open for everyone to witness. Is my contention that Thancred is faking his injuries in order to draw someone out and make them conclude it's best to act now? Probably not, because it doesn't seem like the people who are watching really care all that much, and that they're not looking for him to be injured because they want to fight us. So I don't think that has anything to do with it, because then immediately after you see him in the very next patch, he's perfectly fine and he's functioning in such a way that I don't think he drew anyone out. It was just, he just acted and he was following the Warrior of Darkness. I mean, you can't take into consideration just these events, because very shortly after, a bunch of events happen that kind of just take away from this entirely. The things that everyone had their eyes on was the peace treaty between the dragons and Ishgard when Nidhogg showed up, and that seems to be all anyone cares about at that point. I don't think he's trying to draw anyone out, do anything special. I think he's just whatever. Like, it doesn't care. He took care of it, and then Raban versus Warrior of Light, all anybody really cares about. I think you might be digging a little bit too deep into this. On the lighter note, do you think Thancred and Hilda will get Beast Day in the future? I don't know. I don't know that we're going to see any more. I don't know if Thancred's ever going to be romantic to anyone other than Minfilia, but I don't even think it's about him being romantic to Minfilia. I think he owes her a debt, and that's how he explains it in one of the patches. All right, next question. Hi, Happy. First time with a question, so I have no idea what to gift you. It's all right. I'll just write me an IOU. I'll look towards your next question. Firstly, why you no craft? I don't like it. It's not fun to me. That's the end of my answer. Secondly, as I have a pretty bad carpal tunnel syndrome in my mouse hand, I cannot use a 40 million button gaming mouse. Okay, it's only 12 buttons, so calm down. To program all the keybinds into my rotations, I use a vertical mouse. Okay, that's a lot different. Therefore, I use off-global cooldown macros weaved in some of my action buttons to assist in buffing. Although on occasion they misfire, they tend to ensure appropriate buffs. I know you hate this idea, but I'm the only one with this off GCD and not the primary actions. This is really bad. No, it's bad no matter what you do it with. So it's bad not just for the reasons of the misfiring. It's also bad for the problem that so the game uses a system called a queuing system, where if you execute an action 0.5 seconds before the next action, or even if while an action has a lot of cast time left, if you press the button, in the later half of it, it'll queue up the next ability, and it pretty much eliminates all communications between your client and the server, and allows you to instantly begin executing the next action. As soon as you start using macros don't follow that queuing system. All of a sudden you lose that latency between your computer and the server. And every time you do that, let's say you have 100 ms and you're losing that 100 ms to the macros every time. You're adding that up. I mean, eventually you lose a second of DPS, you lose 2 seconds of DPS, and then over the course of a fight, you look at the end of it, you've probably lost close to, depending on how many macros you have. If you had one macro and you were hitting it every 60 seconds, and the fight was 10 minutes, obviously you'd only lose 10 seconds out of that. That's still 10 seconds of effective time you just lost dealing damage. And then the more buttons you start macroing together, the more times you have to press it. Every time you're essentially creating this latency between your abilities that's causing this issue over and over again. So it adds up very, very quickly over the longer fights especially. If you're someone who's just doing dungeons, is it optimal? No, but who really gives a shit? They're 4-man dungeons. They're super easy anyway. Like, anybody could pretty much do anything to get through those, although I would recommend you try on 4-man dungeons, because I've seen 300 DPS ninjas in 4-man dungeons, and I don't want to encourage that. That being said, no, yeah, it definitely adds up pretty quick. So I know that with carpal tunnel, it's a bit of an issue. One thing I started doing is really using shift and control, and I never did my whole rotation on. I use mouse button 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I use shift 1, 2, 3, 4, and occasionally alt. Most of the time I don't even use that. But almost all of my buttons are between 1 through 6, shift 1 through 6, and alt 1 through 6. I also have R, T, and F, and I used to have X and C, but I don't use those anymore. So yeah, it adds up over the course of a whole fight, especially if you're doing endgame rating. But in like casual stuff like 24-mans and 4-man, it doesn't matter. All right, next question. Greetings and salutations. Hey, Haps, how you doing? How are you? Not a first-time asker, but I have a bonus of 10 Gilmore and Potsherds. I already have my mount, thankfully, but I'll take it and get a bunch of material with it. 2 things about Palace of the Dead. All right, first one, how do you feel about the auto-join in progress when using a match party? It seems about 75% of the time my 41 to 50 out auto-join at the last boss, making it hard to get the last upgrade for my weapon. I feel like if there's a penalty for straight-up leaving the instance, people would be less inclined to leave. Well, keep in mind, by the way, and I gotta make a PSA video for this, if you force quit out of your game, like using the task manager or something like that on the 50th floor, even if you've already beaten Edda, it won't save your progress. So, keep that in mind. Also, on Tuesday, they're hot fixing Edda, and they are making it so that she gives guaranteed upgrades. So, technically, it may not be the worst for you to skip directly to her, because there's always the chance you get no upgrades from 41 to 49, and at least 50 is guaranteeing you something. That being said, don't just leave groups. I mean, do the force quit thing. Like, if you're upset you didn't get any upgrades from 41 to 49, guys, please just Control Alt Delete, close Final Fantasy 14, open it again, and that's it. Your save file, you won't have saved, even if you've beaten Edda. As long as you don't exit, you will not save. As long as you force quit out before you exit after beating Edda. You could also, on the PS4, just unplug your Ethernet cable or turn off your PlayStation or something. Any of those work. Just don't screw over groups, please. It's so annoying to hear that that's been happening to so many people. That's what happens when you have RNG. 2, I've been fiddling with cross-class skills specifically for Palace of the Dead. In the last couple runs I've done, I've used Skull Sunder as a monk. My reasoning is that when you're not partying with a healer or a tank, it's been useful in ripping enmity. Yeah, that's a responsible thing to do. I would say that in the case of a matched group, that's probably not a bad idea. Wouldn't use it solo, obviously. I'd like to hear your opinion on this. No, I think it's a good idea. It's better than the boss bouncing around. Yes, your DPS is going to suffer immensely, but I mean, who cares? Like I said, the enemies in Palace of the Dead and Match Party are not all that much of a threat unless people run around, step on traps, pull too many enemies, or have really low ether pool levels. I think that you're probably doing the right and responsible thing. It doesn't require tanks, doesn't require healers, but you know what? It's better to do it this way than to have it constantly switching target and maybe cleaving people when they don't expect it. So I know, I think you're doing the right thing, and I think that it's actually a really good idea. All right, next question. Yo, Haps, thanks for your answer last week. It really helped. So as thanks for that last week, and the forthcoming question, have a cookie and early access to Palace of the Dead 51 to 100. I could use it. No, I couldn't. With Final Fantasy Countup, I wouldn't have time for that. Anyway, do you think Palace of the Dead is good for leveling 1 to 60? I think, well, first of all, you can't level 1 from level 1. You have to be at least level 17. Second of all, it's really good pre-50. If you just speedrun the first 10 floors, you can actually level really fast. You could speedrun the first 10 floors with if you already have Etherpool Arm and Armor at least plus 10. You could probably do the first 10 floors in about 12 to 15 minutes with a matched party. If you're doing it solo, you could probably do it in about 15 to 18 minutes, and that's like a third of a level prior to level 50, so it's really good. And then if you're just going to run it regularly, it is also very good for leveling pre-50. Post-50, you have to do pretty much all of 1 to 50 to get a level, and I think it's like 110% of a level at that point. So it's less effective there. I definitely think dungeon grinding is more effective. But that being said, I mean, if you're making progress towards an I-235 weapon or you're playing with friends, then that's more valuable than the speed of which you're leveling. And if you're enjoying Palace of the Dead, of course. I would also like to fix that comment. You need level 17 to unlock it. You can go in as level 1. So pre-level 50, answer's still the same. Go in as a pre-level 50, and that's fine. All right, next question. Hello, mister. Important thought. I think Palace of the Dead could use more Gauntlet in it. You're going to have to explain. Finding keys to open doors or treasure chests, shutting down monster generators, accidentally destroying your team's health pickups, a race to steal all the gil before your teammates can, a creepy voice telling you when your bard is about to die. Am I right? So let me tackle this one at a time. So finding keys to open doors or treasure chests. So finding keys to me has never been a great mechanic in RPGs. It's kind of like artificially just extending the length of the dungeon, and it's not actually a true objective. The thing in Palace of the Dead is you're going to kill every enemy anyway, almost every enemy when you're in a group, because you're going to want to level up on those early floors to get to your skills and to get to make sure that in case your Etherpool armor isn't that high, that you at least have your base stats going up. So on the early floors, additional objectives seem kind of pointless to me, unless they are incredibly unique and don't actually hinder that leveling process in any way. So finding keys to open doors or treasure chests, I mean, there's a set amount of enemies, then some extras spawn. But I don't see that necessarily being something that pre-level 60 or pre like 41 to 50 floor has any use. Shutting down monster generators is okay, but again, prior to that, a monster generator would be great. People would leave it alive just to spawn things with fortune commanders. And why would they want to shut it down? You know what I mean? Accidentally destroying your team's health pickups. Well, there aren't health pickups, but I understand that. When you're referring to Gauntlet, I know you're referring to the old action RPG, and not the remade one, but the old one. Dark Legacy was personally my favorite. But all I want to hear is that Blue Knight needs food badly. A race to steal all the gil drops, like, and that's the thing. Can you imagine that in a matched party, a race to steal gil from your teammates? Like, it's supposed to be all about working together, whereas Gauntlet is kind of a mix of work together and also be a dick to your friends. It's like, oh man, all this gold over here in this treasure chest sure looks great, dude. You picked up like the last 3 chests, and it's like, yeah, but I got this one. You're too slow. You know, it's fun for your friends, but in matched party, I think people would hate you long time, and they would rage quit and leave, and you would just run into a ton of issues here. I do think for 51 to 100, though, we should have more interesting, assuming that we're level capped for all 51 to 100. There's a lot of things they could do for 51 to 100 that would be a lot different than what a lot of people are expecting, but until we have more information about that, I can't speculate on what they'll do. All I can say is I would like more objectives, just not the Nizul Isle objectives. And if I get a question about that, I'll talk about that in detail. All right, next question. Sup, Haps? No bonus because of Deep Dungeon. I just have one question for you. And I'm glad that you numbered it so I could count it. 1, what's your opinion on the fact that in Palace of the Dead, when one gear piece gets a plus 30, it doesn't force silver coffers to the other piece and will still try to add it to the max piece if it doesn't blow up? I'm 3029, it's really annoying. Yeah, those final floor RNGs are really, really bothersome. I'm glad that they're adding the automatic upgrade to Edda. We don't know how much it is. It could just be a +1/+1. But that being said, it's better than having no guaranteed upgrades at all, going through 41 to 49, and then having to worry about whether or not people are going to leave or force wipe or whatever it is they're going to do. So yeah, it's pretty annoying that it doesn't forcibly go to the other one. I'd say that's something that could definitely use some hot fixing, but it is what it is now, and as long as we provide the feedback now, hopefully it'll get some adjustments for later. They've been pretty good with these adjustments on the newer types of content when necessary. All right, next question. Hello, Mr. Actually, I think this might be the last question on the forums before we move over on to Twitch, because it says reply number 11, and I think there were only 10 questions on the forums this week. Hello, Mr. Happy. Have the yokai minion and weapon of your preference. Well, I need all of them, so. Thanks for your advice last week about crafting. I rewatched The State of the Realm with Ash, and I found what I needed. But here are my questions for this week. 1. In Palace of the Dead, I'm at 24-23 with both save slots free. Technically, I have a fixed party in one, but we finished the 41 to 50 part. What strategy would you recommend getting the weapon quickly? So, the best thing to do at this point is to go in with a fixed party and speedrun through 1 to 30. Start in 31 to 40, start opening silver chests again, but don't pop like affluence commanders or fortune commanders until you're like in the final stretch, in the final 10. Whether that be like 45 to 50 or 41 to 50, whatever range it is you feel like you need most, saving affluence commanders and fortune commanders and rage commanders to blow through those last floors and look for upgrades is probably your best bet. What we did is we had a fixed party, and what we would do is we would do 41 to 49, and if we didn't like what we got as a whole, we would reset. Like if we got 0 silver chests, we'd reset. We'd just die on the 50th floor. But because it's a fixed party, it's okay. We agreed to that ahead of time. But if one person is at like 21-21 and we're at like 29-29, and the 21-21 person gets like 5 upgrades, we'll finish it for that person. Or we'll ask them what they think, if what they want to do, because they got upgrades though, so they probably want to keep those. That being said, I feel like doing 41 to 49 and at least trying to get at least 1 upgrade per run without needing to run the whole thing over again is your best bet with a fixed party, but everybody needs to be on the same page for that one. 2. In Palace of the Dead, starting weapon from scratch. Is it better to alternate between save files in order to get 2 dungeons of each level range, or going all the way up with 1 group? Ultimately, it doesn't matter, because you still ultimately have to finish it twice, you know? Like, it's just a matter of the order you're doing it in. Like, you'll probably have an easier time getting through the first save file if you do 1 to 10 save, 1 to 10 save, 11 to 20, 11 to 20. You'll probably have an easier time getting through, but effectively, you still had to complete Deep Dungeon twice to get through both the 41 to 50s, you know what I'm saying? So it doesn't actually make a difference, it's just a matter of making it so that as you progress through the floors, that is easier. And again, with a fixed party, that is an okay strategy. 3, is there a good way to notice dots or cooldowns ending to refresh them? If I use Stone Sky Sea or Dummy, I can remember, but during real battles I tend to forget. That's just a matter of attention. I mean, you gotta know... after you do a fight enough, you kind of start to learn when your stuff falls off, when you're applying it, versus what mechanics the boss is doing. That's one way to recognize it. Like, oh, I always use this lead shot when the boss uses this cleave. It happens every time at this exact same time. Now I can recognize, well, when is the next time? When is the next timing I usually have to reapply my dots? But most of the time, it's just a matter of eyes, monster bar, pay attention. And 4, I'm already doing some gardening, but I have to ask, is there any worth in flower pots? I don't know. I actually have no idea. Nobody's mentioned the flower pots, like, ever. So, I don't know. I've got no idea, my man. Thanks again, and have a great week. Well, thank you for all the questions over on the Dream Network forums. With that out of the way, I'm going to field some questions over on the Twitch chat, and I can't wait to get trolled over and over again regarding these questions and ignore them. But hopefully we'll find some good questions over there, and we can get a decent extension on Mondays with Mr. Happy for this week. So let's move over onto the Twitch chat questions. All right, so the first question I'm going to take from the Twitch chat is this. Mr. Happy, have you ever considered doing thoughts about movies on your channel? Any rationale? Also, what do you think about the Justice League trailer? So I haven't actually watched the Justice League trailer yet, but I saw Angry Joe posted a picture of the Flash over on his Twitter. So, I mean, yeah, like I haven't watched it yet. Have I considered doing thoughts about movies? I don't watch a lot of movies is the problem. Like, I'm gonna see Suicide Squad. I still haven't even seen BVS. Like, I haven't seen it. It's not that I have anything against it. I just don't feel like I'm a very good movie critic. I like a lot of movies that are what a lot of people would consider subpar. And there are a lot of really popular movies that I just have no feeling for. But it's all opinion. It's not coming from a place of criticism. It's literally a matter of full-blown preference. And if that's the case, like, everybody has a preference. Like, what's my preference is irrelevant in a sense. I guess it'd be nice to share what I thought of a movie if I recommend people go to see it. If it was atrocious, like obviously like something like Dragon Ball Evolution, I would talk about how atrocious it is. But I don't think my opinion on movies is very valuable because I'm not an avid movie goer, and I'm somebody who is generally, I don't know the right word. I don't know the right set of words. I don't know the right phrase for this. I just don't think my opinion is very valuable just because I'm not a very good critic when it comes to movies in the first place. All right, next question from the Twitch chat. Mr. Happy, do you feel that having multiple ways to get weapons somewhat lessens the value of the relic and animal weapon, since it's only slightly better than, say, Palace of the Dead or Nidhogg, but the grind is much longer? Well, to be fair, it's only longer, a lot longer, if you're doing it from scratch, compared to the current patch. And that's kind of the biggest hurdle to overcome with the anima weapon, is that, oh, you know, this step they just added, this is one patch. I was already caught up, so I just have to do this step. How long did this step take? 40 hours? Cool. Deep Dungeon took me 22 hours to get a weapon that was slightly worse. That seems to be fair. But then if you look at it like, okay, I just came back to the game, I need to get a weapon to catch up. I can't get a group for Nidhogg, and lore, I'm going to need 7 weeks for the tokens there. So what can I do? Okay, I can do Palace of the Dead to get a 235 weapon, or I could do the animal weapon and grind that out. And then you look at the two side by side and you go, okay, if I just do this one piece of content, I don't need any gear for it. It doesn't matter what level I am. I can start working towards it. Versus the animal where you're going to be 60 to even get the quest initially. Then you got to do all the steps that you didn't do. I'd say catching up to an anima is probably the one major deterrent. But on its own, I think it's good to have multiple options. Just because you're trying to appeal to people who have multiple desires. If someone wants to do an anima weapon, they will do it. If somebody wants to do the Palace of the Dead weapon, they'll do it. If they don't, they won't. It doesn't matter that there's multiple options, because the people who do want to do one option will pick that option. The people who don't want to do the other option won't. For some people, the custom stats on the anima has so much value, it doesn't matter if it takes longer to get. For some people, who gives a shit? It's gonna get there's gonna be a higher item level weapon soon. So I'll just wait till that next higher item level weapon comes out, or I'll just do Palace of the Dead. So it's all about player preference, and it's something that for a long time they didn't have, and it's something a lot of people wanted. Oh, I want more than one option to get a weapon upgrade. Cool, here's the animal weapon. Cool, here's Palace of the Dead. Cool, here's tombstones. You know, they wanted more options, and now there are multiple options with multiple tiers of effectiveness. And while it's not necessary in any way. It's not necessary for us to have two I-235 weapons, two I-240 weapons, two I-230 weapons if you're going to include the anima there too, and an I-245 weapon. Like, it's a lot of choices between those level ranges, but people enjoy having that many options, and I'm never going to take that away from them. All right, here's an easy question. Mr. Happy, do you think there will be a new race in this next expansion? No. It's a very simple question. No, I don't think they're going to use any more resources on another new race already. And also, the follow-up question is, will it be Viera? First of all, I said I don't think we'll see a new race in the next expansion, just like I think we're only going to see 2 new jobs in the next expansion. Of course, total, just nothing to back that. It's just a thought. Nothing more than that. It's a prediction. By no means has that been grounded in reality by anything. And I don't think it'll be Viera. I think that they might want to do another original-looking race. And I honestly think we need something more bestial-looking. Like, yeah, we have horns on the Owl Ra, and yeah, Makotes are cats, but you don't really. They all look very humanoid. Like, you can make something that has a humanoid structure and make it look more bestial. So I'm hoping that we get something more. If I had to pick, I would probably pick Benga for that reason, and not the Viera, because Viera, look, they're way too humanoid for me. Alright, next question. Hey Hap, first time asking. I want to start some raiding, Midas Savage and stuff like that, but I have problems with people failing and blaming others. Can you give me some tips on how to get into it the best way? So, it's that attitude that's actually led to a lot of people moving to Gilgamesh, because even though Gilgamesh has a lot of people, not many of them are like super skilled raiders, but there's a lot in the middle tier. You know, people who want to raid on occasion, who want to raid maybe 2 or 3 nights a week with, you know, a group of people they enjoy raiding with and aren't just super hyper concerned about completing the raid. There's a lot more of that on Gilgamesh nowadays. So that's why a lot of people have been coming to Gilgamesh when they want to get into the raid scene. What's been happening with that, and what it sounds like you're suffering from, is it's led to a lot of other servers no longer having those people, and their communities being strictly non-raiding communities. They log in, they talk to people in their free companies and their link shells, they do some dungeons, they do some Palace of the Dead, they do the 24-man for the week, maybe they craft and they gather, but it's mostly a socializing event for them. And what happens is people who end up joining those servers and they meet these nice people, they eventually want to raid and they go, well crap, I have to choose between Gilgamesh going to raid, or I can stay on my server and just try to pull something together. So you may even just be running into that issue now, but the whole blaming others thing is going to happen no matter where you go. It's actually a very Western thing where a lot of people, we were actually talking about it on stream today, where people like to pass the responsibility off to the person next to them instead of looking at how they themselves can improve. Yes, let's say you didn't die to any mechanics, you positioned properly, and yet your group wiped. In that case, yeah, you might want to look at the rest of the group and go, what went wrong? But that doesn't mean you can't look at yourself and say, okay, where could I have done more? What if we wiped at 1%? Where could I have gotten more damage? Where could I have made up for that 1%? That's where a lot of people don't look. They never look to self-improve. They only look to blame others because they don't want to hold a shred of responsibility. And that's going to happen to you on these Western servers, no matter where you go. Doesn't matter if you're in a static. Doesn't matter if you're doing it in the party finder. It's going to happen at some point. So the hardest thing for you is going to be breaking into the raid scene, which is honestly going to take a little bit of luck and a little bit of working with people who may not be able to clear it very well when you're going through your first time. You're going to have to deal with a lot of wipes before you finally find the experience that you need to go to another group and be like, hey, you know, I can do this much damage. I practice this much. I was able to clear this. I had to use it through the party finder because I didn't have a group prior. I see you're looking for a newly formed group with people who are fresh to the raid scene. I want to join that. And that's what you're going to have to look for, people who are fresh to the raid scene. The problem is that's hard to do unless you're on Gilgamesh. So we're hoping that the cross-server party finder in 3.5 accomplishes that job better than the raid finder did of 3.3. Because the raid finder, in theory, works. Problem is, nobody trusts each other, everyone wants to blame each other, and nobody wants to put themselves in that scenario in the raid finder. Doesn't matter if they cleared before, doesn't matter if it's their first clear for the week. Nobody wants any sort of conflict, and the ones that do, well, they're getting it in every other way that they can. So there's a lot of problems when it comes to that, and we'll have to see if this final raid tier of Alexander is going to change any of that or not. All right, the next question from the chat's a pretty simple one. Which tank are you looking forward to soloing Palace of the Dead with? So I soloed with Monk. That was pretty easy, actually. It was way easier than I thought it was going to be, until like, other than like a few select parts. Machinist I'm doing now, which I think is going to be a disaster, to be honest. But which tank? Honestly, I don't know if I could do it on Paladin personally. I mean, it can totally be done, but the damage output on those early levels, like floor 21 to 30 is going to be a disaster on any of the tank jobs. I might try Dark Knight. Dark Knight or Warrior are really the only two I think I'm going to stand a chance. Paladin could definitely be done, but it's going to be really strange. I have a feeling that I'm going to be skipping a lot of mobs just to make time. And I'm going to need a lot of rage commanders. If you get, here's the thing, with good enough RNG, and apologies because I seem to have a frog in my throat. If you get enough of the right commander, any job's going to do fine. If you get, like, if I go through 21 to 30 and I get, like, 4 rage commanders, that's basically 4 floors that are a free clear with full experience. But then if you go 21 to 30 with no commanders of rage, it's a disaster. So, with good RNG, I think any of them, but I'll probably do Dark Knight or Warrior as the tank that I go with first. I don't know what I want to go with after Machinist, though. I wanted to do Summoner, but I think that might be too easy, so I might go for something a little bit more challenging. All right, we got another Palace of the Dead question right here. Mr. Happy, depending on how the leaderboard thingy in Palace of the Dead works, do you expect Square Enix could add more content design for solo players? So ultimately, it's an MMO, so you don't want to design too much for solo only. You want to encourage people that want to step up their challenge. It's okay to make it so it's like, oh, you do it as a group, it has its challenges, but then if you do it solo, it's super challenge. Thing is, for your solo, you're doing it for no reason other than to solo, to say, hey, look what I did. I am fantastic, I'm amazing, praise me. Like Palace of the Dead right now, me soloing at 1 to 50, that's not going to count for the leaderboards later. I'll have to do it again. But I did it, and that's all that really mattered to me. You know what I mean? So I don't think they should design content specifically for solo players, but they should make it so that it's cool if you can do it solo. You know, it's like when anybody solos anything that really hasn't been soloable before, now it is. It's just fun. It's for fun. We play games for fun. Think about that. Games, fun. There used to be an equal sign there somewhere. Be like, oh, games equal fun. Now it's like games equal, how the hell can I criticize this instead of having fun? Have fun. Just go have fun. All right, so I said earlier I was going to discuss how I don't like Nizul Isle as a good reference point for Palace of the Dead. So someone actually asked me that exact question. Mr. Happy, first time asking, but coming from an OG Final Fantasy XI player, Palace of the Dead reminds me of Nizul Isle. You think they will implement more of these floor mechanics later on in Palace of the Dead? So let me go over what Nigel Isle was in 11 for those who didn't play it. It was a 100 floor challenge where instead of every 10 floors saving, it was every 5 floors. So basically what you would do is you would go through and you try to complete as many floors as possible, and then you would either exit on the 5th floor or you would keep going and try to clear more than that. Most people exited every 5 floors. And they were somewhat randomly generated. There were a bunch of enemies in there. There were random boss enemies in there that could occasionally drop loot that was equal to what their counterpart dropped on the outside. I know because I got a peacock amulet, or I almost got a peacock amulet. Lost that roll by a 7 in Nizul Isle, but it had a lot of different objectives. There was an eliminate all enemies objective. That was one. They also had sometimes like don't kill something, or they had other objectives like don't kill any enemies on this floor, and if you didn't follow those rules, you got a penalty. But the objectives were eliminate all enemies, eliminate specified enemies, eliminate Notorious Monster, which would be one of those boss enemies, light one lamp, light lamps in the correct order, and then I think it was light all lamps at the same time. I think those were all of the different ones, and then also defeat the boss on this floor, which was literally like every 20 floors there was a boss enemy from, again, outside of the Nizul Isle that would appear in there. So defeat all enemies, almost like what we have now. Right now it's defeat enough enemies to open the door. Then they had defeat specified enemies, where there was one enemy type in there that you would have to kill all the enemies of that type. Like, imagine if you were on the 5th floor and you had to kill all the hornets on the floor in order to progress. That was the only objective. You could skip everything else. Then there was defeat the Notorious Monster, which was, you know, defeat that one. There's just imagine a strong boss getting thrown in there. I think there was also one where they would add an enemy type. Like it was defeat special enemies, where it was like they would throw an enemy type in there that wasn't normal, and you could identify, hey, that's a special enemy type. I know I need to kill all those. Those are kind of dumb on the early floors. So if floors 51 to 100 are max level, I have a creeping suspicion that floor 51 will start us from level 1 again. I don't know why. I just have a creeping suspicion that it's going to start us from level 1, and instead of Ether Pool Arm and Armor, like for 1 to 50, it's like Deep Ether Pool Arm and Armor. So it's its own separate progression system as well. I don't know. There's nothing to solidify that. I have a feeling creeping in the back of my head that that's going to happen. If we stay as level 60 for 51 to 100, those objectives are fine. You can't have objectives like that when you're leveling in the early floors, because I'm going to kill everything anyway. I want all the experience points for leveling. The only thing that does is when you're solo, it makes things more interesting because you have to come up with strategies for the individual bosses or for pulling the certain rooms, but it adds nothing to the game in the earlier floors. Now the lamps, my concern there is the ordered lamps. So find the lamp in order to exit. Great. That's an easy thing. Like, you could put that on any floor. It's not a big deal. Press all the lamps at the same time. Okay, same deal. You know, whatever. Like, just say, okay, you stand here, that person stands there. It's really not that big of a deal. And then you have the ordered lamps. Matched parties, listen, there's a lot of nice people over in the Duty Finder. There's a lot of nice people in match parties. I would not trust a match party with that for my life. Imagine if, you see how we have the issue for 41 to 50 right now where people are leaving, but we were talking about earlier. Imagine if on floor 49 you get ordered lamps and the dude's just like, no, I'm not going to touch the lamp. Oh, you have same lamp? No, I'm not going to touch it. Nah, I hate you. Shut up. I didn't get my upgrades. Fuck you. We ain't going to the next floor. Time's going to run out. Time's going to run out. They're just dancing around all over the place. But again, I feel like if we can somehow overcome that as an issue, if that gets patched properly, if the hotfix proves effective and they do any other hotfixes, that no longer becomes a problem. It may be reasonable. I would like to see more things along the lines of, like, on floors where we're already capped level, make it so that it's like, oh, everyone in your party is turned to a chicken. Try to make it to the exit to race your friends to the exit and see who can survive. At least one of, and only one of you needs to survive to make it to the next floor. Or there will be a card of return at the end that can res anyone who's dead. So just one person needs to make it through. But it's funny, everyone turns into a chicken and you gotta avoid aggro. There you go. What about if you step on a luring trap, the doors for the room close and it fills with poison gas, and now you have this extra mechanic feeding on top of that. And then you could also have, I don't know, I had a bunch of them that I was thinking of before. But it's just, they can come up with more fun things like that to break up, hey, kill enough enemies until you can go to the next floor. And I think that that would be welcome. We also have 3 commanders that aren't in the game yet. There's 3 slots that don't seem to do anything. So I don't know what they'll do with that, but if they could do time extensions, or if they could do sort of challenge modes, like automatically inflict gloom, but get an increased rate of upgrades from silver chests, like things like that would just be cool. Like little things that aren't just straight A to B, and there's 50 floors along the way. So hopefully that makes sense. But I'm down. I'm down for things. I'm down for more than the objectives that we have now, which is kill enemies. That's for damn certain. All right, this is going to be the last question that I do for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. So this question is, Mr. Happy, with the new Final Fantasy Count Up Streamathon you're doing, could you explain what this is actually going to entail and how hyped you are for it? So I'm really excited for this because there's a lot of these Final Fantasies. People have been asking me, when are you going to stream that? When are you going to stream this Final Fantasy? When are you going to stream that Final Fantasy? Well, the answer is all of them over the next 9 weeks, pretty much. So let me make sure I'm completely clear about this event. So from July 25th to September 30th, we will be streaming all the main numbered single-player Final Fantasy titles. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and 13. That does not include After Years, does not include 10-2, does not include 13-2, does not include 13-3, does not include Tactics, does not include Crystal Chronicles, doesn't include Dissidia, doesn't include any of those. Main numbered single-player Final Fantasy games. 11 and 14 are not on that list, but I will be playing Final Fantasy 14, of course, during the Final Fantasy count-up period, just because there's no way I'm going to be able to avoid that. So we're going to start with Final Fantasy 1 on July 25th. We're going to start the stream a little earlier. And we're going to be doing the stream. The streams are probably going to be naturally a little longer for the first week. But starting Wednesday through Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday of the first week, for every sub or every resub I receive, it's going to sort of incentivize the stream to go a little bit further. We're going to go the stream a little bit longer. And if the streams go longer and I finish the games earlier, that opens up a chance for subs to unlock bonus benefits, like the ability to play things like Tactics, the ability to play things like Dissidia. It also opens up the opportunity to do more giveaways, like if we get 10 subs in a day, bam, there's an extra giveaway. If somebody tips $25, $30 in a day, bam, there's an extra giveaway right there. On top of that, there's going to be a few Steel Series giveaways. They're not sponsoring the event or anything, but I can do it like a Steel Series giveaway. We are sponsored by them. A Steel Series giveaway every month. So like we're going to have those as part of it as well. So that's pretty much the gist of it. And then we're going to go through, we're going to finish 1 all the way through 13. And we're going to see how that goes. I've done marathons like this before, but we also have to remember we are strictly playing through the game. That is the most important thing to remember. This is not a, hey, I'm going to beat Ruby Weapon, Emerald Weapon. It's not a, hey, I'm going to beat Omega Weapon. It's, I am going to finish the game. However I do that is up to me. But with certain things like subscriber benefits, they could pick a job that I play. They could force me to use one character out of the roster. I'm going to be naming characters after subs. And on top of all the other things I listed for them, there's going to be a lot of incentive to be a sub for the duration of the event. You also have to be a follower to win any giveaways. There's going to be added chance for subs to win. We really want to try to get back to 1,000 subs with this event because we hit that 1,000 subs, and like I mentioned at the beginning, things haven't felt the same since hitting that 1,000. I knew I wasn't going to be able to maintain it, but I really want to get back up closer to that point, and it's not going to be easy, but it's something that I really want. It's something I really want to work on. So hopefully the event ends up working out. I've been kind of stressed about it this last week, just trying to imagine, hoping that the event goes well, hoping that it is a success, and that it doesn't end up being 9 weeks of me kind of going like, okay, clearly this isn't helping my channel, this isn't growing my channel. I think it will. I'm confident based on the community we have here and how much a lot of people actually love the old Final Fantasy games, that it will be really good for our community, and it will be really good for the stream, and it will be really good for the YouTube channel. So, but I have been really stressing about that, and I hope that it all does come together and we can have an amazing time living through these nostalgic memories and ending it with Final Fantasy 15 when it comes out on September 30th, immediately going into Fan Festival the second week of October, to World of Final Fantasy at the end of October, to Pokemon on November 18th, to Kingdom Hearts 2.8, and we could just ride that wave all the way through the holiday season, because I'm thinking that it's going to be pretty good. Anyway, guys, that was going to be the last question for Mondays with Mr. Happy this week. Remember, if you have a question, there is a thread over on the Dream Network forums. In the YouTube video, that's usually under the video. There's also an email under the YouTube video that you can send video questions to, should you have them, should you be brave enough to post a video question. Those have been really good questions, actually. It's mhmonday100@gmail.com, pretty much. And if you want to send those in, I answer the video questions as you see at the beginning. I answer the questions on the forums, as many as possible. And I even answer questions live on Twitch after that, if there is time. So thank you everyone for watching that one more time. The video is down here. Be sure to check out that Monk solo for sure. I'm going to finish uploading that right after I finish the live stream today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. We'll be back next week where hopefully I'll be coming to you regarding our first successful week with Final Fantasy Countup and a lot of uploads for that as well. But anyway, I'm gonna finish separately on the Twitch side. I'm not done with my Twitch live stream just yet, but I am gonna wrap this up for the YouTube side of things. Thank you for watching over on YouTube. I'll see you next week for next Mondays with Mr. Happy, and until then, take care.